welcome to another one of the last few episodes of the BOBCAST. I don't really know which one. I don't know how many we got left, but I'm Bob.
And I'm Grace.
And
World
she's
Destroyer.
already cracked open that spicy water.
I already have it. I'm drinking it.
Wow. Really giving them a mouthful or an earful.
Welcome to my ASMR
Pouring
channel.
that spicy water right in their ears. Today, we are going to talk about this new book that was supposed to come out in June but got delayed because everything is globally shortened right now. Everything is smaller than it used to be.
Except for milk, corn, and soy, which we will never run out of in the United States.
Yeah, that's the true three branches of our government.
Yep. Those are the checks and balances.
And today, funny enough, we're going to be talking about a much better government system, or at least one that is written to be so. That is, and not just the government of, but the entire world building of the Radiant Citadel, which is the new setting being published by Wizards of the Coast, more or less published in an adventure anthology book, which will be coming out later this month, since it's July when this is going to go up. But the first chapter has already been released on D&D Beyond for free for anyone to download, and it has all this cool setting info, and we wanted to talk about what we like, maybe pick apart some things and speculate about some other things.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the Radiant Citadel to basically decide whether or not we should buy this book. Because I'm super fortunate to have a D&D Beyond press account where they just let me read all this stuff. And it's great. But that means we actually haven't bought a hardcover book in a long time. Part of the reason is just because, once you read it a little on D&D Beyond, we're like, I don't know if I need this whole thing. The last one we bought was previous anthology, Candlekeep Mysteries. So by the end of this podcast, hopefully we'll figure out whether or not Radiant Citadel could be worth buying in hard copy form. And this was this suggested by you? Was this your idea?
Well,
yeah.
Actually, I think you were like, what if we talk about this? And I was okay.
That's how it normally goes.
Because I had told you that you could read the first chapter.
Yeah. And then I did.
Yeah.
Or really, I
liked it a lot.
I had a speech-to-text thing read it to me because I was really tired at the time.
Yeah. But I mean, you were very excited about the general idea of...
Right. Oh, yeah. When we had a conversation in the car, I went from the beginning of the conversation thinking this book was kind of dumb to then at the end of the conversation, which by conversation, I mean mostly me just talking. Yeah. I feel like I would just kind of, but slowly over the course of it, convince myself that the Radiant Citadel is actually really cool.
And it's going to be the new primary setting.
Well.
I mean,
that's my
were saying.
Grand theory. We'll talk about that maybe later in the podcast here. So how do you want to start us off?
I don't know. Let's talk about the thing that I think is the coolest.
Sure.
And most mysterious thing. The ethereal maelstrom, very close to the Radiant Citadel. A constant threat, threatening to suck the Radiant Citadel in. The keening gloom.
Yeah, I forgot it was described as sucking things in. Kind of black hole-esque, though they don't actually...
More like a whirlpool is what I'm picturing it.
Yeah, I guess if it literally... It probably does use the word maelstrom somewhere. Whirlpool makes more sense.
Yeah, but it's made of fog.
Oh yeah, do they describe what it looks like anywhere? I feel like I might have missed that.
Just a big dark cloud.
Classic. Looming storm.
Yeah, I mean, part of what's so interesting about it is that they don't actually say what it is.
Yeah, I did like how.
Yeah, it's one of those things that they leave it up to the DMs. I mean, I'm sure whoever actually created this has an idea of what they think it is, but they didn't actually write it out. So as a DM, you have the power to make it be whatever you want.
Yeah. So what were some of the things that they did describe it as, though? To give our listener a little more background.
Let's see. Massive ethereal cyclone.
Oh,
Nothing that enters the cyclone is seen again.
Cool.
When the Citadel was first rediscovered, the Citadel was, I think, like very nearly.
Yeah, it was close to it.
Yeah, but they managed to like pull it back.
Or it was like once the diamond that is in the center of this whole city was activated, it
drove back the cyclone. But then it also says, in times of turmoil within the Citadel, the cyclone draws closer.
Oh, I missed that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so wait, maybe in general too, let's give like a 1 minute or less kind of description. Like, what is the Radiant Citadel?
It is a hub for all kinds of peoples to come through and trade and exchange ideas. It is a repository of knowledge of all these different worlds and civilizations of the material plane. And, you know, possibly other inner planes, I guess. It exists not on the astral sea, as I assumed it would, but in the deep ethereal, which is cool because I haven't really seen anything done with the deep ethereal before.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I've only ever read border ethereal mentioned anywhere that they mentioned the ethereal plane.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
Anyway.
But yeah, back to, so that's what the Radiant Citadel is. It's kind of utopian land, a hub of many different cultures, founded by many different cultures a long time ago, recently reactivated like a couple centuries ago by the current leader, sort of. Yeah, and that current leader is the one who helped drive back this Keening gloom. So, what are our theories about this Keening gloom and what lies within it or created it, or what is its purpose?
My personal theory, spurred on mostly by like all the Vecna stuff that
I've been obsessing over.
Bob's been obsessing over, that Wizards of the Coast has been doing, is that the Keening gloom is or was somehow related to Vecna's phylactery. Because think about it, like the ethereal plane is like where ghosts are, right?
Yeah.
And ghosts are basically souls.
Yeah.
And
they're undead.
A phylactery needs to eat souls. So if there's like this big black hole cyclone that's just like sucking stuff into it constantly on the ethereal plane, it's basically just like devouring tons of souls, potentially. Just like a giant unstoppable phylactery that constantly consumes, so that the guy who relies on it to fuel his perpetual undeath can just come back whenever.
Yeah. I mean, when you read that line about nothing in it is ever seen again, it left me to think one of two things. One, everything that goes in it is destroyed, but still then it's like consumed by what exactly? Or two, it is transported somewhere else, which I don't really know how a phylactery works. Like, can things ever be released from it? Are they stored and like a soul that goes in it is just consumed, or it can't be freed ever?
I feel like it's consumed.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the purpose, I guess, is it fuels the... Yeah, okay.
But
so that could be it.
I've seen other like really good theories.
Where are these theories popping up already?
Reddit, you know. Not about the Keening gloom, but more about like Vecna's phylactery.
Okay.
Like one person said they think the Book of Vile Darkness is the phylactery because the Book of Vile Darkness can only be destroyed when all evil in the multiverse is also destroyed.
Wow.
Which will never happen. So honestly, it's like the perfect phylactery.
Okay.
For the most... And that kind of makes it like a paradox, because you can't destroy Vecna, one of the most evil creatures that exists, without destroying the Book of Vile Darkness. But you can't destroy the Book of Vile Darkness without destroying all evil.
Yeah. I mean,
honestly,
I guess
that is a better theory, but I think mine's cool anyway.
Yeah, I don't think the Book of Vile Darkness is supposed to be that. I don't know. It is a thing that he created and that he was inspired to create from this, mysterious entity that is probably this super deity thing called an ancient brethren named the Serpent that will be talked about in an upcoming video. So I don't want to go into it a ton here. But deep lore stuff that might not matter, but could matter if Vecna becomes an important villain later on, later on in this edition and for the Radiant Citadel specifically.
That's another thought, though. What if the Cyclone, the Keening Gloom, is another Ancient Brethren?
I guess that could be. I mean, it's something, I don't know, it's definitely described more as like an object. So it would be an interesting reveal if like, oh my gosh, the Keening Gloom is actually this long lost supernatural force that's more like a living thing or like a sentient thing, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I have a sentient black hole maelstrom in my setting, so.
Oh, there you go.
They stole it from me. Just like they stole the idea for the leader being a bronze or brass dragon.
Yeah. I forgot about that in your game.
Yeah.
I think that's been mentioned here before.
Pomme de terre?
Yeah, I think it's probably
like
an older episode, but
yeah.
Yeah. So when Grace brought that up to me, first of all, I don't know, I guess I don't want to put any real stake on like that's what it's going to be, but I am pretty convinced that Vecna is going to be a villainous in-game force behind why magic and the multiverse will be reshaped as they create 5.5 or whatever it's really going to be called, but this next evolution of D&D, quote unquote, that we've already been promised is coming, in new rule books in 2024. And in previous editions, specifically going from 2E to 3E, it was just that, where Vecna entered Sigil. I always forget how to pronounce it. Thank you, Matt Mercer. Entered Sigil, and it's just described as kind of cheated his way in there, but his presence there ended up causing the other super, super powerful force that kind of ruled Sigil to reshape the multiverse because he screwed it up that bad, just his presence there. And so everything had to be changed, and that was literally the in-game lore justification for why magic works different now, and some worlds are lost and new ones discovered, I think was like a line in it. Why they jumped from 2 to 3 to second edition to third.
So like then connecting that to the Radiant Citadel.
Yeah.
Like we had the thought that in like 5.5 when like everything's different and like Vecna returned and destroyed the world or whatever he might do.
Yeah.
The Radiant Citadel is like the last remaining
it's literally the Citadel
of civilization, because for whatever reason he can't get to it or won't get to it. If destroying it would mean potentially destroying his own phylactery, if that's what the Keening Gloom is.
Or maybe it's like he wants to, something else maybe we'll probably talk about later is the diamond itself, the auroral diamond, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
If I'm getting that right. Its origin isn't known, or, and there's in-game theories about it already, but one of those theories is that it's some sort of weapon, like maybe that's something Vecna wants to harness.
Yep.
Basically, that was kind of the conversation we had in the car when I convinced myself Radiant Citadel is definitely worth getting into, is that, this is kind of the ideal setting that Wizards of the Coast wants now, for many reasons, which we'll probably talk about in just a minute, about how the society works and who it represents. Like, this is what the game is and should be moving toward, and it makes sense that something like this, which has all those qualities, and then in-game is a hub between many different worlds, could act as the perfect primary setting. And another piece of, I don't know if I want to say evidence, but another like supporting factor toward that is how they immediately, before the book is even out, announced that Radiant Citadel is going to be added to the list of, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess community content settings on the DMs Guild. So now anybody who's going to publish on DMs Guild can write stuff in the Radiant Citadel setting. Whereas up until now, it's only been Forgotten Realms, Ravenloft, Eberron, and I think a small, like 2 or 3 others at most, other settings that could be published there. But right off the bat, they're like, hey, Radiant Citadel, we want people to write content for this. So that tells me they're definitely really leaning into this heavily. And could it actually replace the Forgotten Realms as the main setting for 5.5? I don't know. It does seem like a big jump, but obviously there's a lot of things in the Forgotten Realms that WotC is like trying to change, trying to move on from. And if they can just start with a clean slate with this new one, it seems like a good move.
A clean, very inclusive, utopian, as we said, slate. Basically, like, the Radiant Citadel is socialism as socialism should be.
Yeah, it's socialism without communism.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the principle is that everybody has what they deserve. Like, within there, a few things just off the top of my head that it mentions are, yes, it is a huge, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess you could say lucrative hub for trade across the multiverse, but they don't really work with individuals. They work with like whole governments. So it's very complex. It'd be very, like, within that system, it's built in a way that it's difficult for an individual or even an organization to twist it and like corrupt it. Also, they do have this, I mean, I'll use the word like police force. It's called the Shield Bearers. So it's very much like a badge is how I thought of it. But they like live and work by a mandate of only defense. And there's even people in the organization who think it's too lax. They described universal basic income as a part of it.
They have
healthcare.
They have the House of Convalescence, which is free healthcare.
Yeah.
They have the Palace of Exile, where you can just live until you get on your feet and you get food and shelter and, medical care. Mental care, like it says, refugees are cared for physically, mentally, and emotionally as they make the transition to living in the Radiant Citadel permanently or relocating. So they get therapy.
Right. Well, they even described there's a practice which many people in the city think is too harsh of, if I guess for maybe people who've repeated crimes or something, like after having gone through this rehabilitation.
If you do a crime, they make it so you physically cannot do that crime anymore.
And then banish you from the city. But it's like, not that bad.
I think that's even just like, if you do it once.
Maybe it was just once for like very severe things.
So they have this kind of like draconian law that I guess makes people
Is that
less...
draconian? I don't know if that's right. I feel like draconian... What does draconian mean? Doesn't that just mean you get killed for anything you do?
Not necessarily killed, but excessively harsh or severe.
Okay. And so the people of the city view this as a draconian practice.
Most of them probably view it as a necessary draconian practice. I think it's described as controversial.
Yeah, okay.
But not as like, nobody thinks it should be this way, but they just keep doing it anyway.
Yeah. So this setting has all the things that you could want. And it's funny because when I was reading this, I already, Grace and I already talked about this, but at some point way back, she and I had talked about like a homebrew setting that you made. Mm-hmm. And it was similar to this, like especially like there were major connections with basically like law enforcement and the rehabilitation of criminals. And like that immediately came to my mind. And the thing that you brought up with that setting was that it was actually like difficult to create problems that the heroes would have to solve, I guess. Yeah. Right?
I had to rely fully on like supernatural threats. Because
all the people are good.
Because everyone was good. Like that doesn't really work as a setting.
Right. And so I think in this case, they pull it off well by it being a city. Like it's a single city that this is all happening on. And it is obviously remote. Like it's in the middle of the deep ethereal plane or whatever. So even though it's connected to other ones, and we'll talk about those connections probably too, I think they pulled it off well as a way to justify having society like run so smoothly, and again, which would normally create a lack of drama, like a lack of a need for heroes in the world. I think they do it well by building up this setting as just a hub between other settings, really.
Yeah, so all the conflict basically happens outside of the Radiant Citadel. But I think if you wanted to use the Radiant Citadel as a adventure hub, party is kind of coming in and out, going to different planes or worlds, doing other stuff. There should be like some plot in the Radiant Citadel to do something terrible with it.
Well, and there definitely are some, right? Like I think it seeds a few in the first chapter. Like there were recommendations for using the Radiant Citadel for homebrew adventures. Like there were like 4 bullets kind of toward the end from what I remember. But just off the top of my head, while you're scrolling for that, I mentioned one thing when we were talking about this earlier was that the leader of the shield bearers does kind of privately, I guess. Like it's like he's one of 2 NPCs described in here, 2 or 3 NPCs described in here. And he's described as privately believing the mandates that the shield bearers have to work by are too strict. And he wants to be more proactive. But because it's strictly defensive, it has led to many deaths, like among his ranks as a leader. And he is like living with that trauma, and it's tragic. So he wishes he could do more. And it says like he hasn't done anything to act against the mandates or whatever, speak out against it. But it's something that he believes. So it was cool to me to see how even within the setting, there were a few things describing how, yeah, like it, even in a fantasy world, this is hard to pull off. Another one being how the council, the speakers of the ancestors who govern the city is made up of individual leaders from 15 incredibly diverse founding worlds. And so, of course, they have different value systems. And it says in here that it can take them months or like weeks or months to reach consensus on agreements on like running the city. And that makes sense to me. So there are definitely some points of conflict in here that like the players could be intervening in. Did you find the thing I was talking about?
I found the thing you were talking about. But
is it more about off-world stuff?
Yeah, it's more about people in the Radiant Citadel asking the adventurers to do stuff in other worlds.
Okay.
But no, like, plot to destroy the Auroral Diamond or summon some demon within it.
Yeah.
Kill the, what are they called? The
Incarnates?
The Incarnates.
Yeah. Well, speaking of plots to kill something or other, the one thing that came to my mind as a idea that I don't think is really spelled out in here as a quest is the assassination of one of these speakers of the ancestors, because it is described that if one of them basically just leaves the position early, like it could be that they die, or it could be that they're just out of the Radiant Citadel for too long. Like they have to stay at the Radiant Citadel. And if they don't, or if they die, or whatever, lose their position early for some reason, within 30 days, the wildlife of the Radiant Citadel starts to collapse, like without one of these leaders. That was a really weird connection that isn't explained anywhere, because these people are elected officials who are then approved by this, you could say like cohort of kind of like spirit guardian.
They're called the
creatures.
Dawn Incarnate.
The Dawn Incarnate. And it's probably through them that these governors end up having this spiritual tie to the life and geography of the Radiant Citadel, but it's not explained anywhere. So I thought that was interesting. And basically just that being something that an outsider who, for whatever reason, wants to mess with the Radiant Citadel could easily do. Like if, maybe not easily, but if they could find a way to kill or kidnap or whatever one of these speakers of the ancestors, the whole Radiant Citadel is going to begin to suffer shortly.
And that's kind of a weird concept, though, because theoretically, there should be 27 of these people.
I did think that was weird, too.
But somehow, it's just fine with only 15.
Yeah.
It does also say that if all 27 are found and brought back to the Citadel, that unlocks the Citadel's true power.
Yeah, so for a little background there, first, the Radiant Citadel, as a city, was initially founded by leaders from 27 different worlds.
Which is a lot. I feel like it's too many.
Well, yeah, and so in this chapter, and I guess in this whole book, only 15 are described. They're the 15 current rulers of it, and it was between whatever apocalypse like happened here millennia ago, and then just a couple hundred years ago, these 15 sort of reclaimed it. But no one knows, or at least it said that the Dawn Incarnate might know what happened, but they haven't shared that information if they do. Or like when asked about it by scholars, I think is how it's phrased. So yeah, there should be 27 rulers. There's currently only 15, which is still a lot to keep track of. but there should be 12 more. So why isn't
Yeah.
the island dying or whatever?
I guess once like a civilization is reconnected, that's when
then
they are actually contributing. Since those 12 were lost and the Citadel was basically powerless, there was no battery of humanoid souls powering it at the time.
You got real phylactery stuff still on the brain.
As like the 15 came in, it like powered up again, but it's still only at like 50% battery
or whatever.
So like I guess as you come in with more civilizations and they connect their spirit, their essence of their civilization, then it truly becomes part of the Citadel again, and only when it's gone do things start to fall apart.
Right. But it makes me think that the reason the Radiant Citadel was messed up in whatever way a long time ago is that when it was fully activated, because again, there are theories about what it means when it's fully activated, whatever, it was something dangerous that either destroyed 12 of those worlds or peoples or whatever.
Plus, with that many different societies active trying to have a governing body all at the same time, if they had to fight over whether or not to use the diamond or the Citadel's power, that could be what fractured it initially.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, and then I guess so the one thing that has been present this whole time, despite maybe all of the civilizations missing, actually, it didn't really say that. I guess there was never a contiguous, is that the word I'm looking for? Like a civilization that was present the whole time. It was like all 27 were actually wiped out, and now these 15 have come back, but they're still looking for the other 12. But the things that have been there the whole time are the Dawn Incarnates.
Yeah.
These assemblages of, and physically, gems, each of a specific type of gemstone that are actually made up of spirits of people from the world that the Dawn Incarnate represents. So basically, each one of these, we'll just say 15 worlds, are represented by a physical person who is their speaker of the ancestors, but also by a gem animal that is the Dawn Incarnate.
A Dawn Incarnate. And there are 15 of them, plus one dead one.
Yes.
A sapphire wyvern.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's a wyvern and probably the biggest of them tells me that this was the most ancient and powerful of the civilizations.
Were any of them a dragon?
No.
Like a true dragon?
The wyvern is the closest to a dragon. But this whole soul gem thing reminded me of I think it came out in the mid 2000s.
I love it already.
Between
Well, you could be talking about Elder Scrolls Oblivion
2000
right now,
and 2010. I'm not talking about Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I'm talking about Children of Mana.
Which even I forgot you played. I don't know how many people actually know about this game, but
So I'm not talking about the Switch game that I play. I'm talking about the DS game, Children of Mana. It takes place in the Square Enix World of Mana series, which are not actually they don't even take place in the same world technically. They just take place in the same
cinematic universe.
In the same set of magical rules.
Okay.
Sort of.
That's good enough.
And it's kind of similar basic lore. But in this game, there's been an apocalypse or something. And the center of the world, at the center of the world is this thing called the Mana Tree. And
you're already the Mana Tree.
Yeah, the Mana Tree. And this is the one that is actually a sequel, I think.
Okay.
Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay.
Where's the soul gems?
Throughout the game, you are using these gems to boost
gotcha.
your power. You put them in an item called the gem frame, and each type of gem can boost certain abilities or give you like other powers.
Yeah.
And it's revealed, like in the middle of the game, that the gems are made of the crystallized souls of the people who died in the apocalypse.
Okay. I feel like we actually did something like that in D&D before, too, now that I'm thinking about it.
We did?
Yeah. I think that might have been when you were DMing like 3.5. I feel like there was some encounter, like not an overarching thing, not anything big, but where there was like a creature that had captured souls and my character like used one for something. I really am struggling to recall. Yeah, it wasn't like a gem or anything, but it was like there was definitely some kind of human soul element being used briefly. Again, it was just basically as like a consumable magic item.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you got these animals. They're made out of gems.
Oh yeah, Radiant Citadel.
Yeah, animals made of gems that are made of
spirits,
souls. Not necessarily even like humanoid souls. Some of them are like, well, so some of the incarnates themselves are like trees.
Yeah, they're not all animal life, which I thought was cool. I was actually really
neat.
pleased at the proportion. Like it would probably like a third of them, maybe even more, were trees or plants versus just all being like cool magical gem animals, which would still be cool. But normally in that kind of thing, there'd be like one that's a tree, the mana tree, like whatever. There'd be one like important tree somewhere in the setting because that's just such a like fantasy trope that I love, by the way, as a lover of archetypal fantasy and trees in general. But I was very pleased that there were multiple trees representing.
But I think the reason they say spirits and not like souls is because some of the spirits are of like animals and plants from that world.
Yeah,
at least that's how I interpreted it.
I think you're right.
Oh, and also like one of them mentioned like the spirit of a pond on this world can like remember vague details about like a fisherman that came to their shores every day. So it's not even like all living creatures. It's like
very animism.
Animism.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Which is cool and makes sense for these spirits then inhabiting an inanimate object, gems, in general.
So like here's my question though. We have these 15 Dawn incarnates, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the 16th, the known dead Sapphire Wyvern.
The only dead one.
What happens when you bring back a civilization whose incarnate is not present?
I thought about that too.
Does it start over with a new incarnate? Does the presence of the civilization just kind of instantly summon all the spirits from their world and it just instantly creates a whole new one?
Two things come to mind about that.
And what if they're not a founding civilization? What if it's just a new civilization that joins the Citadel?
Okay, so three things then. First of all, I don't think a new civilization can join. I think it's only those 27 founders because it's like that's what they said. There were 15 of the original are back and they're looking for the other 12. I don't think a new one could be incorporated. Or I think part of the reason I guess that they're leaving it open as to what the other 12 are so you can create your own, like you just said, for homebrew's sake. But I don't think they're gonna introduce like a 28th. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then what were the other things? So 2, I think that by the way they described the Dawn Incarnates, it only makes sense to me that they are sort of rebuilt or revived once the civilization rejoins the Radiant Citadel. Because I'm 99% sure when reading that chapter, they described it as some of the spirits having been there and seen what it was all like knowing the true purpose of the Radiant Citadel, of the Auroral Diamond. But they haven't like shared the information. I already even mentioned that in the podcast. I don't know where it's specifically listed in the chapter, but so that was a familiar thing. But then hold on. But then here's the third point: is that it should be like the true answer to this question should be known, because they also say there were 13 that came back first, and at some point in the chapter it says that 2 new ones were recently added, now bringing it to 15. So even if those 13 all arrived at the same time and for some reason they're Dawn Incarnate, we're just like there or whatever, those 13 were around to see how 2 new Dawn Incarnate just came about to represent these 2 other nations that completed the 15. Yeah. So the answer should be there. It's just not listed, at least in this chapter.
Yeah, it might be somewhere later.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because in the thing that I read before, one adventure idea was the Dawn Incarnate of Atagua knows where one of the missing civilizations is and will tell the party.
That's big.
So I'm not sure if that adventure centers around actually bringing that civilization back, or because it says like the Incarnate wants the party to stop an alien evil from encroaching on Atagua. So the adventure is probably surrounding that more, but like it might discuss.
Well, just read the prompt.
It says, the Dawn Incarnate of Atagua declares it is willing to reveal the location of one of the missing civilizations if the characters prevent an alien evil from encroaching on Atagua.
Okay.
See the adventure, Orchids of the Invisible Mountain.
Got it. So yeah, that adventure is probably just the encroaching alien evil, but then the reward would be a future campaign, basically, of bringing back that other world.
But it also like creates the question, like, why are the Incarnates hiding this information?
That's really a great point. Like that they're withholding this information.
Yeah, it makes sense if like the awakening of the Citadel is what tore it apart in the first place. Yeah. But they also know that like we can use this to get the citizens of the Citadel to do things. Mm-hmm. Which then is like, what are
like they have
what
another
are the true motives of the Dawn Incarnates then?
Yeah, and if they're the ones that are actually the final deciders of who the speakers of the ancestors are, like, you know, they're picking the government too. Yeah. So that is really interesting.
So what do they, that's something to think about when you run adventures. What do the Incarnates, or the Incarnates at least in your campaigns, what do they really want?
Right. And I feel like for a while, again, assuming this is going to be a big part of D&D lore in the future, I really think this could be huge. But I do think then that the Dawn Incarnates motives are going to be a long game kind of thing. Like they're
absolutely.
Yeah, because they're
any like, immortal creatures.
Exactly.
Goals are very long.
So
game.
I mean, even for the D&D consumers' purposes, like that won't even really be revealed in books until like years and years down the line, I think. Yeah. But I guess we'll find out. Maybe it's in chapter 2 through whatever of this book.
Yeah. I'm excited for this one.
So should we then here's the question. I should have led with this. You know what? I'm going to say something now, and then I'm going to add it at the beginning of the video. Okay, now we're back in the present. So, the last question then truly is, do we buy this book?
Yeah, I think we buy the book and we buy the special edition cover because
if we're getting it, we're getting the special edition cover. It's a cool looking cover. I remember when I first saw that cover reveal months ago, just seeing pastel colors, gemstone animals. I was like, Grace probably doesn't even care what this book is about. She just wants that.
Yeah. I mean, look, the special edition cover of Mythic Odysseys of Theros is what made me buy the book.
It's also the best. I've said this before. I don't remember if it was in a video or a podcast. Special edition cover of Mythic Odysseys of Theros, greatest D&D cover I've ever seen. Yeah. Not even just 5e. Coolest art piece I've ever seen. Yeah, they should kind of just
all look like that.
We don't own any like posters or anything, but I would get a poster of that.
And
that's
I mean,
so cool.
I was always like, I hated like the Ravnica book coming out because I was like, I don't want Magic the Gathering content in my
little did we
God-fearing D&D. But yeah, then Mythic Odysseys came out and I was like,
I think there's probably more to even Ravnica than I've never even really looked into it that much.
Because I don't know, I guess I don't really see it as real D&D lore.
Yeah, but it is now.
I guess it is now.
And it really makes me think, like, by virtue of just something new like this, Radiant Citadel coming out, that I am really interested in. It's leaving me with a lot of cool questions, and it really just seems like ripe for adventure. Like, I'm excited to see what people do with this on DM's Guild and what Wizard of the Coast does with this in official capacity. And it's the first time I am really excited about a publication. Well, besides the new starter set.
Like, you actually have
really
time to
pumped for
DM
that.
stuff now.
That's probably part of it, too.
Makes it worth buying things.
That's totally true. I definitely was more biased before, just for lack of time to run new material and even read it.
You know what might be really fun? If we co-DM'd a Radiant Citadel.
Like, on Patreon? For patrons
that might
to
be
play
cool.
it?
That might be cool.
I'm not, no promises here. That just happened.
It's an idea.
It's an idea. I don't know. We're just really...
This is very like now, in the future.
Yeah, all right. This whole podcast was already pure speculation for the most part. 20% summary of what we read in Radiant Citadel, 80% predictions about what it really
means for the rest of 5e.
But I hope you found it interesting and inspiring, and
I hope you're not too mad if our theories don't match up with yours.
Yeah, and let us know your theories in the comments. But most importantly, keep building.
Stop building.
I gave you too much lead time on that. I gotta be sneakier about it. All right, keep building.